Hello, everybody, our big audience. I'm very sorry that we are 1 minute late, but you know that we are based in Spain, so I hope you will forgive us. So today it's an amazing day because we have an amazing lady with us, uh, Miss Brenda Franks. I don't want to make the same mistake that I did previously. And Brenda, can you introduce yourself? You are an expert in interpretations. What is that?
Well, interpreting means conveying a message, perceiving a message correctly and conveying it in another language, from one language into another language. That is what interpreting is.
It's like similar to translation.
No, it's not. No, well, in translation, you have time to choose the right words and correct and revise and perfect the text before it gets used. But when you're translating, it's an instantaneous response, which means to say that you have to think on your feet all the time. You have to be very agile so that you can come up with the right phrases and the right words and to accurately convey what the person wants to say.
But it sounds to me like you have to have a very deep understanding of the language that you are interpreting.
Well, the thing is, it requires obviously fluency. You have to have a very good command of both languages. You need fluency, quick thinking. You need to be neutral. You have to be impartial, and you have to understand the nuances of the conversation and the goals. To get the goals, it's always a really good idea to speak to your client beforehand and to prepare with adequate time, because you can never over prepare when you're talking, when you're interpreting. So preparation is absolutely key, and understanding the needs of your client, and just really being very, very agile with both languages, with an ability to skip from one language to the other sort of instantaneously.
So
it's a bit like, sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry, Maria, please go ahead.
So it's a bit like these people that are sitting in the UN, that are sitting up in the boxes behind all the UN representatives that have their little ears, and they're simultaneously translating what they said, right?
It's very, very demanding. It can be very, very taxing mentally. You have to absolutely get a good night's sleep the night before. No alcohol beforehand, because you've got to be very, very lucid. But it's, you get an adrenaline rush, and it's very, very challenging. You have to know what you're talking about and convey the message effectively.
How many languages do you speak, Brenda?
Well, badly 5. English and Spanish, I'm bilingual. Very good command of Catalan. I studied it for 2 years when I came here, and I totally submerged myself in the Catalan society because I felt it was very important for me personally. And then I learned I did a lot of French at school in the UK, went back to studying at the Institut Français when I was here for another 2 years. We spoke German at home. So that's English, French, Spanish, German, and Catalan. But
And so you interpret in which languages?
Well, I can do English, Spanish, and Catalan.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
But you're not from Spain.
No. I'm from London, and I've been living here for many, many years. And in fact, it was a bit of a rush job when I came to Spain, because I came because I was getting married and moving to Bilbao, and I had about 7-8 months to learn Spanish and then find myself a job when I got there. So I went to evening classes. I went to night school. And I did a 2-year certification course in Spanish, and I did it in 6 months. But I was carrying my notebook and my notes everywhere with me, everywhere, on the bus, on the underground. I was just totally obsessed with engrossing myself in the learning, experience.
But what I find amazing with you, Brenda, and I have to say that, is that native English speakers like you have it more difficult to learn a foreign language. And the reason, because I see it, obviously I'm not native English, but I see that always the easy way out is to speak English, which doesn't force you. So if you are German, nobody speaks German, so you need to speak Spanish. You need to learn Catalan.
Überhaupt nicht.
Überhaupt nicht.
Keine Deutsch. Yeah, no. It's the thing is that once you've learned one foreign language, there is a process, a mental process that you undergo, and the next ones after that are very straightforward. And fortunately, because we spoke German at home, and I was brought up with German from the age of 4 when my Oma, my grandmother, came to live with us. So I was exposed to speaking in a bilingual way from a very young age. And the earlier you are exposed to that situation, the brain, the mechanism in the brain works in a different way. And I think after that, it becomes much more straightforward. And I love languages anyway. I've always enjoyed it. I loved speaking French, and I really loved learning Catalan when I got here, and it gave me a thrill because I was involved in the Olympic Games. It gave me a thrill that I could really, you know, as they say in Spanish, defenderme. You know, I could really get along well with Catalan as well when I got here.
In Catalan, I think it's even more rare than to speak than Spanish. So you don't have a lot of competition, no?
It's an advantage when Catalans see that you're a foreigner and you've made a mega effort to learn their language and integrate yourself and make a contribution to the society here. You know, it's a tremendous advantage for you, and it's stood me in very good stead over the years.
Well, for me, it's challenging enough to learn Spanish, but Catalan, I always say in the next life I will learn Catalan. But,
well, maybe, Alex, you may have to do that with your son if your son decides to settle here.
Exactly.
You still have time. Your life's not over, Alex.
Eh?
You still have time. You can still learn.
He's the only one in our house that he speaks Catalan.
Yeah.
But you know, people tend to forgive me if I don't speak Catalan because they realize that my Spanish is also not the best. So
well, don't forget, they don't expect a foreigner to speak Catalan. So it's the icing on the cake when you suddenly turn around and you speak to them with confidence and and fluency. They were, wow, you know, tiene mérito, you know, te mérito, that you've gone that extra mile, you've made that extra effort. And it's like interpreting. When you make that extra effort in interpreting, you know, people they're just delighted by it, and it's helpful for you and for them.
Absolutely.
Brenda? Sorry, can I go back to something Brenda mentioned? You mentioned the Olympic Games. You worked on the Olympic Games?
Yeah,
I live in Villa Olympica, so I'm very interested.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in the management team, not the upper echelon, but the lower management. So I actually handle several departments because I was in the Paralympic Games as well.
Wow.
And it was absolutely one of the best times of my life. I had a blast. And what stood out for me was I was very lucky because I was in the accreditations department. So everybody from the Olympic family, everybody, the trainers, the judges, the athletes, the physicians, the Coca-Cola suppliers, everybody had to pass through the accreditations department to get their plaque with all their access to the different venues. And I was very lucky because I was looking after the Atlanta team. And there was 150 of them, and as you know, they had the bid coming up 4 years later. And it was just amazing working with them. They were so professional, so great, and so grateful for everything, you know. And I was taking them around and getting them appointments to see key people, and also the Sydney people. You know, they were so professional because I won't sort of go into too many names, but there were other countries with other cities that were upping for the, you know, they were for the candidacy for the year 2000. And they just wanted to have a good time. I mean, they were going out and they're getting, you know, blasted every night and just having a good time and enjoying the beach and the great weather. But the Sydney people were absolutely disciplined. And every day we met first thing in the morning and we went through everything. And then sometimes I accompanied them. Sometimes they just wanted to have a look around, see how the venues were constructed and all this sort of thing. And the biggest thrill was when they won the bid. I mean, that for me personally, I remember I was just crying with joy because they deserved it. They really, really deserved it because of all the effort they put in when they came here. They took advantage of what we had on offer for them. So
that must have been quite a memory, I imagine. Yeah.
It was absolutely amazing. Yeah.
what makes a great interpreter beyond of just speaking the languages? What is the thing that
I think
makes a difference?
I think the difference is the preparation, first of all. You know, you have to gen up on the words. And this reminds me of what happened to me. I felt very, very confident. And I was involved in a press conference for the UEFA Cup with the Paraguay football team. And what happened was I was getting along fine. We were doing all the talking and everything. It was going very, very well. And then they were talking about shooting goals, you know, creating goals and winning the cup. And I got mixed up with the goalkeeper and the striker.
Oh.
So I talked about a goalkeeper instead of a striker, but fortunately they took it very, very well and they laughed about it and I got out of that one. So, you know, that was quite funny, but they took it very well and it was a great experience, you know.
Yeah, it must be difficult if you're interpreting. Do you need to do research on this topic you're talking about? Because if you're going to be speaking about a topic, as you said, that you might not be familiar with, you might not understand the specific terms and things like that. So do you know in advance? Can you prepare?
Well, of course you have to, and that's where a good communication with the client comes in well in advance. You can never over prepare. I have a friend, Tony, and we're in the Barcelona English Choir together. And he's a great interpreter. He's been doing it for many years. And I had a chat with him. And he said to me that in one of the jobs, he had a very important job. And it was just a short time slot. He prepared for 2 weeks. He was actually preparing for a very short time slot of interpretation. And he spent 2 weeks on it. And so, you know, this is what you have to do. You have to be really prepared. You can't be stumped. And it's very important to create that good vibe when you start so that you exude confidence and that people feel that they can rely on you and that you're going to do a good job. So a good image helps as well, you know, and your interpersonal skills, they're very important too. So it's the whole package really.
Yeah.
Yes, because I think it is not, sorry, Maria, but what I feel it's the biggest challenge is that every word in a different language has a different, it doesn't have the exact meaning. It can have a different meaning.
Exactly. Well, this is what happened to me when I first came to Spain. You know, I thought you could translate, and you can't translate literally. Some cases you can, but in a lot of cases, what you have to do is you have to look for the equivalent.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may even have to explain it rather than actually use one singular word. And I had a Swedish friend when we were living in Bilbao, and she said, "Oh, I can't understand the Spanish. They're always bored." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, they siempre están aburridos." And I said, "Hang on a minute. Aburridos got two expressions. There's two meanings. One of them is that, yes, you're bored, and the other is that you're fed up. And so if they're saying, "Oh, estoy más aburrida," it could be that they're just fed up. And another thing that happened to me, which we call in Spanish metadura de pata, was when I was living in Bilbao. I arrived in the winter and it was very cold, and everybody was saying to me, "Estoy constipada, estoy muy constipada." And constipation in English, you know what it means, but constipada in Spanish means that you've got a cold.
Yeah.
And I thought, everybody's constipated here. What is happening?
Yeah.
And then I found out, no, constipada means that you've got a cold. And I thought, oh my goodness me.
It's like embarazada in English and French. Embarrassed. Embarrassé doesn't mean the same thing as in Spanish. And I said that a few times, and people were like, "Really?"
Absolutely. Yeah. So those were my experiences. But what I recommend is that anybody who wants to train, that they should follow a route.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
is there a school for interpreters, or how do you learn from someone?
There's two routes. There's two routes you can take. The first route is the academic route, and that is going to university and doing a master's, and then doing a bachelor's, and then maybe a master's, and even a doctorate if you like. And then there's an exam. There's a qualification, and it's hold on a minute. It's called the IT something. I've got it in. I can send the notes on this. I've got the information about it. But it's an official recognition by the Institute of Linguists to qualify as an interpreter. And so you can go down that route and qualify academically, and then obviously try and get work. So, you can look for an internship in a company, which is a great way of totally submerging yourself in the culture and with the people and everything, just conversing in Spanish, which is what I did in my first job. Or you can, you've got to live in the country. It's a good thing to live in the country for 1 or 2 years. So you can do the academic route, or you can do the personal route, which is studying yourself and then coming to the country and immediately using your Spanish, and then continuing to perfect it by making friends with Spaniards, or in this case Catalans possibly, and exchanging. There's language exchanges you can do, and lots of other ways where you can actually improve your knowledge. But learning colloquial Spanish is extremely important. Otherwise, you just sound like a foreigner, fumbling and trying to get by, so.
Yeah. But it's also for going back to us. I'm thinking again about these guys in their boxes at the UN. They're simultaneously translating. So it's not just somebody saying something and you're repeating it. You're saying it at the same time, and your brain must be. I mean, I can only imagine your brain going so fast, having to take in the information and spit it out.
That's even more demanding because they don't stop for you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, if you're in a booth, they don't stop for you. You just have to keep going and keep going like a machine, which I don't even know if I could do. I mean, it's as you say, it can fry your brains. Yeah. Whereas if you're interpreting and you've got the person next to you, they say it and you interpret, and then you go back and they interpret. And if you're nervous, you just say, "Can we break this into smaller segments?"
Yeah.
Which, when I was starting out, I used to say, "Can we just do a block?" Because bless them, people, when they're speaking in their own language and they want you to interpret, they'll just go on and on. And you start to, hang on a minute, hang on. And this is what happened. I was interpreting for this marvelous man, the late Nathan Ricks, who was an extremely successful distributor in the New Skin organization. And I had the incredible privilege and honor of interpreting for him when he was here in Barcelona. And he was sort of going, 50 to the dozen. And I just said, hang on, stop. And he took it well. He took it very well. He was a great character. And I just stopped. So he said it and I translated. And then I looked at him and he knew that I'd finished. And then he carried on. And you have to be honest with people. They understand. Everybody's human. And fortunately, it was a language that I knew very, very well, the language of the skincare and personal grooming and all that sort of thing. So it wasn't actually technically demanding for me. It was just the speed by what he was going and his enthusiasm. And I was trying to keep up with him, which I did, thankfully. But it was a fantastic experience working with such an inspiring leader.
Yeah. And so who are the people you're working with now? Because
at the moment, I am finishing a book I'm writing on the power of color, which is a passion of mine. And so I've kind of parked interpreting. I do it, for a hobby when I'm needed and things like that. But I'm going to pursue it again in a couple of months' time when I get my book published. But writing a book is a very demanding thing.
Yeah.
With lots of other commitments, being in the choir and Barcelona Women's Network and going to the MBA.
And I am mostly interested, Brenda, to know why should a company hire an interpreter?
Okay.
And is there any specific, let's say, category of companies where you can add more value in terms of size, maybe in terms of industry? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, very, very much so. The thing is that it all depends on the quality of the service that the client wants to offer. So, some people think that they can get by, and then the other person says, "Oh, yes, no, I understand a bit of English." That's a risk. It's a risk for your client, and it's a bigger risk for the other person. So by hiring an interpreter, you are ensuring a much higher level of communication, a more effective level of communication. It's almost like a guarantee that the message you want to transmit is going to be effectively transmitted. It's going to be conveyed effectively. So it is, and also, you know, what you can do when you're interpreting is you can break the ice and you can create good vibe, you know, between the client and the other party. So it's kind of like bridging a gap, and also not just bridging a gap from the linguistic point of view, but from a cultural point of view, because there are nuances in different cultures. And for example, you know, Spaniards tend to gesticulate a lot and get more emotional, more excited.
Loud.
Yeah, loud, yeah. And you know that from where you come from as well, Maria. It's a bit similar like that. So, and also in Greece, you know, gesticulating, getting excited.
For me, the loud part, it's not a challenge here because I'm Greek and I think we are even louder than Spanish.
So the thing is that the challenge, when you're dealing with like the Nords and, you know, north of Europe and a lot of British, they're very, very reserved. So what you have to do is you have to tone down your communication when you're speaking in English to them. And then you kind of tone it up again and you add the emotion when you're translating back into the Spanish. So you're adjusting your modus operandi, if you like, according to the different cultures. So I remember once when I was talking to somebody in a Swedish person, and he was telling me, I said, you know, what's it like for the Swedes to do business with Mediterranean countries? And he said, well, it can be very taxing, very, very, very challenging, because we don't show our emotions. We, you know, it's just part of our culture. We just, you know, deadpan. And it doesn't mean to say at all that we're not interested in the deal. It's just that we're very, very reserved. And so, you know, the Spaniard will say, oh, you know, what's the matter with this guy? He's just, you know, he's just not responding at all. I'm wasting my time. He's not interested. And I said, no, not at all. Not at all. You know, it's just that he has a different way of responding because of his upbringing and his culture, and that they're much more reserved in the way that they speak. But it doesn't in any way imply that they're not interested in doing business with you.
I feel like you've just answered a question I was going to ask you, because I mean, with, you know, AI and all these things coming, you would imagine that this is a category that could easily replace a human being, but you've just answered by no, because it's not just about translating the words, it's also about the culture, the emotions, about you're on their team basically, and you're making sure that what they're trying to convey is understood in the right way, which clearly an AI bot or a machine would not.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, I'm a great believer in the future of personalized services, whether it's reflexology or psychology, you know, therapies, all the personalized services will never die. You know, it's like having a made-to-measure tailor, you know. All those personalized services won't die because people have a need to connect with other people. And they need to have that interaction and the warmth and the feedback and everything you get from a personal connection. This is why your networking mornings are so incredibly successful, because they're tremendous icebreakers, and it enables people to bridge the gaps and to make connections and create friendships as well. And I think that that there is there's a great future for interpreting. I think translating is a very, very different situation. You know, we've got AI now, and you know, we know that AI is going to replace jobs, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on, you know, what kind of. But the future of personalized work, like, you know, I'm a qualified image consultant, and I advise people on how to get the most out of their physical appearance, how to look their best and develop their potential. And, you know, it's the personal contact with the person, you know, and telling them about all the good things that they have, you know, and like they may have a wonderful smile, or they may have a very endearing way of communicating with other people. And you can tell them that because you pick up on that when you have this personal interface with them. But a machine would never be able to do that.
It's true.
Yes, well, they will never be able. So I'm with you, Brenda. I mean, I find the biggest challenge for AI is this, that something has value on its scarcity. And if everybody can do anything by using AI, then the value disappears because it's so
Absolutely.
easily, it's
Absolutely.
everywhere.
Absolutely. And you know, you can often tell when something has been created by AI because there is it's clinical and it's cold.
Mm.
And sometimes it just lacks that depth of feeling that you can only transmit when you're talking personally to somebody.
Mm.
And
It's on its infancy, Brenda. You
yeah,
don't know how it's going to be in 10 years from now.
yeah, yeah. So you know, I do think that the personal services are here to stay. Thank goodness.
Well, I think even more because of that, because people are less connected to each other. I feel like and I think, as you said, that's why our morning networking mornings are working, because
Oh
people
yes,
want to go back and have real life experience. A lot of us work at home in front of a computer,
that's
and
right.
even though we're speaking, it's not the same as when we're face to face.
Well,
There's not the
can
same bond.
absolutely. Can I remind you guys about what happened during COVID?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that
Thank
made
God
it
we
even
had
harder.
Zoom. Thank God we had Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, people
Well,
felt
10 years earlier, it would have been
felt
terrible.
so lonely. They felt isolated. They couldn't get out. You had to show a piece of paper if you just wanted to take your car out and things like that. It was a very, very, very difficult situation. And you know, a lot of groups, Zoom groups, were created then, including a group that I created with my friends from the choir. And we used to get on once a week, and it was quite emotional actually, to reconnect after being so separated. And none of us knew how long it was going to go on for either. So it was a lifeline, an absolute lifeline. But you know, can you imagine if we just connected on a WhatsApp message? It just wouldn't have had the same effect.
Yeah.
And I think it was, especially for older people that didn't get out, anyway, so much, or young people, anybody really. It was a lifeline, having Zoom or Skype or FaceTime. That connection that you could have, and you could see the person, and I celebrate it, and I hope it goes on forever.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Brenda, where can he find you?
The best way is through LinkedIn.
Okay.
If they send me a message with LinkedIn, I'll be very, very happy to speak to them. And if anybody's hoping or trying to come into this business, interpreting, then the best thing that they can do is check out. But I would be very happy to speak to them, and I'm going to just double check on all the information that I've compiled about the qualifications. But I know that one of the best ones is the Institute of Linguists. And but having said that, as I said, my friend Tony, he's done fantastically well for himself, and it's all been repeat business because he ingratiated himself on those clients when he first started working with them. So why on earth would they want to work with anybody else if they know he's going to do a good job?
Yeah.
And the whole thing is to achieve the objective of the encounter.
Yeah.
And you've got to guarantee you'll stick with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you very much for being with us here today, Brenda. I think it would be a great idea if you can put down a summary of this information, and then we can share it with our audience.
I'll be very happy to do that. In fact, as soon as I come off this connection, I'm going to start creating a PDF, which I'll send to you. And yes, I think it'll be very useful for people, not only people who would like to come into interpreting or are considering it, but also people who are looking for interpreters. What is it that they should, what will make the difference between a good interpreter and a great interpreter?
Yeah, that'd be helpful, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to talk to your listeners.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda.
Look forward to seeing you both soon.
Yes. Thank
next
you.
Tuesday.
Okay. Bye for now.
Goodbye.